Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into silk sheets beneath the stars, wandering the candlelit corridors of a Mughal palace and discovering just how lavish, and weirdly relatable, the bedtime rituals of royal princesses used to be. You'll feel the weight of embroidered robes, taste honeyed cardamom milk, and hear the hushed footfalls of eunuchs guarding the women's quarters. Of course, you probably wouldn't survive more than 5 minutes in this palace, not because of danger, but because everything is scented, formal, and one wrong glance at the Emperor's falcon might get you relocated to a colder corner of the empire. Still, you're in luck tonight. You're a Mughal princess, and bedtime is about to be a whole production. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Are you listening from Delhi at midnight or Nebraska at 2 a.m.? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun is setting over the red sandstone domes of Agra Fort, and golden light spills across your courtyard like honey. You lean against a carved Jaroka window, watching the sky shift from apricot to violet. You're a Mughal princess, somewhere between a political pawn and a cultural superstar. Your every movement is observed, recorded, and interpreted, yet here in the evening, in your part of the palace, you're a little freer. The women's quarters, called the Zenana, are bustling as always at this hour. Courtesans, concubines, tutors, sisters, grandmothers, wet nurses, poets, eunuchs, and maybe even a stealthy pet mongoose named Farouk. They all crisscross the marble floors in gentle chaos. But things are calming now. The evening prayers are done, the day's diplomacy is over, and the scent of sandalwood is thick in the warm air. You pass by a servant grinding turmeric in a stone bowl. Another carries a brass tray with slices of quince and candied ginger. You nod at your old music tutor, who's plucking a tampura in the hallway. Not for a lesson, but simply because the night demands melody. You reach your favorite alcove, a small veranda that overlooks the moonlit Yamuna River. You're not alone. A few other royal ladies are already reclining on cushions, murmuring about things that won't matter tomorrow. The conversation flits between complaints about itchy lace undergarments and debates about whether Emperor Akbar really composed his own poems or just paid someone with great handwriting. Here, in this twilight glow, the stress of palace politics fades. And that's not by accident. Your entire evening routine has been designed for that effect. While the world imagines princesses spending hours choosing jewelry or dodging poisoned goblets, the real secret is how much effort went into simply relaxing. A maid discreetly places a tray at your side, spiced betel leaf for digestion, a tiny clay cup of rosewater, and a brush to untangle your hair. You run it slowly through your strands, watching strands of oil-glossed black silk pool around your shoulders. There's nothing to rush for. The moon will be out for hours. Historians still argue whether Zenana life was a gilded cage or a hidden center of power. The truth? It was both. And tonight, it's your sleepy sanctuary. The walls of your room are thick with murals, celestial maps, flowering vines, a peacock that's looked smug since you were 7. The carved ceiling overhead has a tiny brass hook where a perfumed fan once hung. Now, instead of air conditioning, you rely on the open layout, latticed windows letting in the breeze, thick walls trapping the cool. Somewhere far off, you hear the echo of an elephant being settled for the night. A hawk screeches, and beneath it all, the steady, low hum of women speaking softly in Persian, Hindustani, even a little Turkish. The Mughal court is a tapestry of languages and lands. And so is bedtime chatter. Tonight, you're not wearing royal silk, not yet. You're still in your day clothes, a pale pink muslin angak that smells faintly of incense and mango. Soon, though, you'll slip into a nighttime robe, not pajamas per se, those are still centuries away from showing up in Western wardrobes. No, What you'll wear tonight is halfway between a sari and a sai. Soft, light, and just sheer enough to scandalize a European ambassador. Not that any are allowed this deep in the palace. Before that, though, your body has to unwind, and that starts with motion. You take slow steps across the sandstone floor, pausing to press your toes against the cool tile. A servant brings out your evening slippers embroidered with tiny parrots. You ignore them. The stone feels better. It grounds you. Another helper brings out your punkah, a hand fan made of palm leaves, and waves it gently as you begin to walk the perimeter of the courtyard, not for exercise, just for rhythm. The way your grandmother used to, the way your mother still does, the way every woman in the zenana seems to have a different nighttime loop. Some prefer pacing, some prefer stretching, some just lie down and mutter complaints until they sleep. The scent of marigold drifts from a garland someone left nearby. You breathe it in. You don't know it yet, but centuries later, researchers will discover that certain flowers do help slow the heart rate before sleep. Your nose figured it out first. As the sky darkens and the servants light tiny oil lamps, the palace changes temperature. Not colder exactly, but thicker, more secretive, less performative. The mirrors on the walls now reflect candlelight, and the corridors feel narrower somehow. You pass by a small carved window that overlooks the men's side of the palace. You can't see much. That's the point. The zenana is private, hidden, and you like it that way. You head back toward your chamber, already feeling a little looser in the shoulders. Tonight is young. You've only just begun to float towards sleep. Your chamber awaits, and the moment you cross the threshold, the air shifts again. Inside, the scent of rosewater is thick, and soft lantern light dances along the silk-lined walls. The room is large, sure, but it doesn't try to impress. Everything has its place, like it's all been arranged to whisper you gently into sleep, not shout royalty at you. Still, there's enough brocade hanging around to remind you you're not exactly living a minimalist lifestyle. You ease down onto a low divan while your maidservant Shabnam prepares your evening bath. She's been with you since you were 6, and she knows your bath preference is better than you do. No harsh soaps, water just warm enough to melt your thoughts. And always, always, a few drops of attar made from crushed jasmine and almond. Your mother's recipe. Legend says it was passed down from the Persian side of the family. Legend also says it keeps nightmares away. That part you're not so sure about, but you're not willing to test it either. Behind the carved screen in your bathing alcove, steam begins to rise. The copper tub glows softly under the lanterns, filled with rose petals and floating orange blossoms. This isn't about scrubbing away the day. It's ritual. The bath is a boundary, a gentle gate between the world of duty and the realm of dreams. You disrobe slowly, letting the silk of your angaka slide to the mosaic floor like a whisper. There's no hurry. Every motion tonight has the tempo of a lullaby. You step into the warm bath water, and it welcomes you like an old friend. Sinking into it is like submerging into another world. The heat undoes knots you didn't realize were tucked behind your ribs. Shabnam hums softly nearby. Maybe it's a lullaby. Maybe it's just a memory. She pours water over your hair with a silver cup, each splash sending a ripple of scent and silence into the air. Historians still argue whether Mughal bathing rituals borrowed more from Persian courts or Indian traditions. The truth is likely both, because that's the Mughal way, layering elegance on top of influence until everything feels seamless. And at this point in your life, you couldn't care less which ancestor invented the bath. You're too busy melting. After a while, the water cools, and Shabnam gently wraps you in a linen cloth that smells faintly of vetiver and clay pots left out in the sun. You don't towel off so much as you air dry in style. Someone opens the lattice windows just enough to let in the night breeze. It kisses your skin as you step into your dressing chamber. Tonight's sleepwear is laid out on a lacquered tray. A soft robe of muslin so fine it could float off on a sigh, with tiny floral embroidery that glimmers under candlelight. You slip it on without ceremony. You've worn royal jewels heavier than your own head, but right now, this robe feels like the most luxurious thing you own. You're seated now on a cushioned stool while Shabnam dries your hair with a comb made of sandalwood. The motion is slow and repetitive, enough to make your eyelids droop. You ask her to stop halfway through just so you can lean back and let your head fall into her lap. She tuts quietly, but she knows you do this often. Something about being touched so gently while listening to the night sounds makes your brain melt like clarified butter. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale begins its song. You wonder idly if it's singing for someone. Not you, surely, but it might be. Birds seem to favor you. Or maybe they just like the courtyard trees. Eventually, you stir enough to sit up again. Your hair's still damp, but you don't mind. You pad barefoot to your low bedside table and select one of the bottles your grandmother gave you. An herbal tonic she claims encourages vivid dreams. It smells like tulsi and something bitter, maybe neem. You sip it and immediately regret the taste. Still, you smile. Your grandmother once said the taste of medicine must never be sweet or it won't work. That's probably nonsense, but the woman once survived smallpox with only a bundle of turmeric root and pure stubbornness, so you trust her. Your bed is being prepared now. Not a simple act. 2 attendants smooth out the cotton sheets, which have been cooled with fans and scented with crushed cardamom. One of them carefully tucks a clay pot of cool water into the corner of the mattress. It's said to draw heat from your feet, promoting better sleep. Is that science? Not remotely. Does it work? Unclear. But it's tradition, and that's enough. You lie down for just a moment, letting the robe fall open slightly at the collar, exposing your skin to the cool air. The ceiling above you is painted with stars. Actual constellations in gold ink, mapped centuries ago by some court astrologer who probably also insisted your cousin marry a goat to change her luck. Mughal astronomy was both profound and completely unhinged. A servant steps in to ask if you'd like the pearl-studded mosquito net tonight or the plain gauze one. You sigh and choose the plain gauze. Sometimes simplicity is the greater luxury. She nods and begins arranging it carefully, letting the folds drape around your bed like a cloud lowered from heaven. You don't plan to fall asleep yet. You still have milk to sip and stories to hear, but already your body is beginning to give in. The bath has done its job. The robe is weightless, the fan is steady, and somewhere deep in the palace, a drumbeat from an evening dance slowly fades. You stretch once, toes curling against the edge of your mattress, and feel the last remnants of your daily tension slip out like shadows at dusk. You're not quite ready for sleep yet. The air in your chamber is still thick with the scent of jasmine and damp vetiver, and your mind is just awake enough to fuss over things, like, say, whether the anklet you wore yesterday really did keep you from dreaming of your cousin's ghastly singing voice, or if that was just coincidence. Tonight's bedtime look is selective. You opt for no jewelry except the smallest pair of nose studs and a single anklet, worn only on your left foot. There's a belief in the palace that wearing one anklet at a time helps balance the body's energy. You've also heard the more cynical version. One anklet won't jingle enough to wake your tutor when you sneak into the library after hours. Both sound plausible. Either way, you're not in the mood for a full gold meltdown on your limbs. Across the room, your dressing table is quietly glowing under the flicker of a nearby oil lamp. You approach it, barefoot and slow. The stone top is cool to the touch. On it, a small mirror from Venice, rimmed in enamel, a comb shaped like a peacock's tail, a clay pot of rose-tinted lip balm made from beetroot and butter, and a handful of perfume bottles. The choice of scent tonight is crucial. Not because you need to impress anyone, though, let's be honest, there's always someone in the Zenana worth impressing, but because scent here is memory. You uncap a bottle of Cura essence and dab a tiny drop on the inside of your wrists. The sharp green fragrance slices through the haze of your own thoughts, replacing them with the memory of a monsoon afternoon 3 years ago when the river overflowed and you danced barefoot in the mud, scandalizing absolutely everyone. You smile. That drop was worth it. Then you take a moment with the mirror. Not to admire yourself, though you do sometimes, just to irritate your older sister, but more as a check, not for beauty but for peace. Is your brow furrowed? Are your lips too tight? Do you look like someone who still remembers court gossip from breakfast? No? Good. You're nearly there, nearly ready for the soft dive into sleep. You return to your cushions near the bed and reach for the small wooden box beside your pillow. Inside is something your great-aunt gifted you before moving to a quieter palace in Lahore, a tiny pouch of couscous powder to sprinkle between the sheets. It smells earthy and ancient, like the memory of forests long gone. Some say it repels nightmares. Others say it attracts ones worth remembering. Either way, your great-aunt swore by it, and she had the most delightful wrinkles you've ever seen. Now that you're powdered, oiled, combed, and scented, you stretch out on your cushions while an attendant brings in the night tray. Always the same: warm saffron milk, a dish of candied fennel seeds, and a few slivers of almonds dusted with silver leaf. The tray wobbles slightly as she walks, and a single fennel seed rolls off. You watch it hit the floor and think briefly about imperial wastefulness, before eating every remaining piece with regal satisfaction. You sip your milk slowly, enjoying the thick golden sweetness as it coats your throat. It's said that saffron opens the heart, calms the blood, and induces dreams of flying. You've had saffron milk every night since you turned 10. No flying dreams yet, but your heart does feel more open, possibly just to more milk. Historians still debate whether Mughal women truly had access to luxury and freedom within the zanana, or whether that's a romantic exaggeration based on their poetry. You tilt your cup back and take another warm swallow. Honestly, it's probably both. You're joined soon by a younger cousin, barely 14, who insists she won't sleep until someone tells her the story of the pigeon with 7 heads. You're not in the mood, but she snuggles beside you anyway, scattering your fennel seeds with her elbow. She doesn't apologize. You don't expect her to. Instead, you begin a slow, meandering tale, not the pigeon one, but a different favorite. The one where the clever courtesan tricks a djinn into doing her laundry for 40 years. Your cousin listens with half-lidded eyes, chin tucked into your shoulder. The scent of sandalwood in her braids is strong, and you find yourself trailing off mid-sentence as your own head begins to drift. But before you slip fully into sleep's velvet arms, someone else arrives. A eunuch, quiet as always, bowing with just his eyes. He carries a star chart, the kind the court astrologers use to map destinies and wedding dates, though tonight it's just to soothe your cousin's curiosity. He spreads it out beside you and begins to murmur about constellations, about planets in retrograde, about how Venus currently favors dreamers over warriors. You look up through the lattice ceiling to where the real stars shimmer above. Your eyes scan the sky, not to locate Mars or Jupiter, but to find the tiny cluster of stars your mother told you would always lead you home. You can't remember its name, but it's there, and that's enough. The eunuch folds up the chart, offers a low goodbye, and vanishes into the candlelight. Your cousin is already snoring softly. You brush a strand of hair from her cheek, careful not to wake her. Outside, the courtyard hushes. Lamps dim one by one, and from the opposite balcony someone plays a flute, low and slow, like wind moving through reeds. You close your eyes. You don't fall asleep just yet. Instead, you drift, half here, half gone. One hand still wrapped loosely around your silver milk cup, the other tucked under your embroidered pillow, which you're certain was fluffed more than necessary. The palace doesn't believe in minimalism. Even your dreams have decorative borders. Your cousin mumbles in her sleep beside you, kicking once at the covers and then sighing dramatically as if her soul is already arguing with someone inside a dream. You smile faintly. She'll never admit she actually likes being in your room, especially not to your older sister, who insists her chamber smells better and has nicer cushions. They've been locked in that silent war for months now, and you are, as always, the unofficial ceasefire zone. You rise gently from the bed, feet bare, the marble floor cool beneath your toes. The lanterns are mostly dimmed now, but one by your window still glows like a firefly in a jar. You lift the curtain and step out into the night air. The terrace outside your chamber is quiet and high-walled, a pocket of shadowed luxury that few in the palace ever see. From here, you can see the distant shimmer of the Yamuna River, reflecting the crescent moon. Somewhere below, in the men's quarters, a night watchman murmurs a song, something slow, perhaps a folk melody from Gujarat or Punjab, carried here by migration or marriage or war. The Mughal court is like that, a stew of histories simmered together until nobody remembers where one flavor ends and the next begins. You lean on the stone railing and let your body breathe. The weight of your robe, the scent of your hair, the softness of the milk still in your chest, it all combines into a fog of comfort. And then you hear it. The soft, almost imperceptible shuffle of slippered feet moving down the hallway. It's the hour of whispering. Most of the palace believes sleep descends like a sword, decisive and final. But in the zenana, sleep is more like embroidery. Stitched slowly, with long pauses and gentle corrections, and sometimes stitched communally. Tonight is one of those nights. A knock, not loud, just a careful tap, sounds at your door. You already know who it is, your sister, the one with the sharper tongue and even sharper eyebrows. She never says she can't sleep. She just shows up, uninvited, with a silk wrap and an excuse about a new poetry scroll or a rare mango that must be tasted at midnight or else it spoils forever. You let her in without a word. She flops dramatically onto your bed, displacing your cousin entirely, who grumbles but does not wake. Your sister's wrap falls to the floor with the flair of a woman who knows she'll never have to pick it up. You sit beside her, legs folded, and she produces her treasure. A tray with sugared lotus seeds, a scroll of Hafiz poems, and a single peeled orange that smells sharp and floral. You begin peeling the segments apart while she fans herself lazily. "So," she says, "are you dreaming of the dancing boy from the courtyard again?" You groan. "He was just a musician." "Mm-hmm, and I'm just a potter's daughter." She laughs, but softly, the kind of laugh that doesn't echo. You offer her a piece of orange, and she takes it without thanks. That's her love language. Casual entitlement. The two of you snack in silence for a while. Below, a rustle of peacocks stirs the air, followed by a brief flutter as one clambers awkwardly onto a ledge it clearly didn't mean to reach. Peacocks, it turns out, are not graceful at night. They're beautiful disasters. Historians still debate how much freedom royal women had in the zenana. Some claim it was cloistered seclusion. Others describe a vibrant, feminine micro-kingdom filled with art, politics, and even rebellion. You and your sister know the truth is slipperier. You're trapped, yes, but with silk ropes and mangoes at midnight. It's complicated. Eventually, she curls up near your feet and begins reciting softly from the Hafiz scroll, skipping the parts she finds boring. You don't stop her. Her voice is low and raspy from too much nutmeg and not enough patience, but the words are familiar, comforting, something about love being a wine and hearts being lamps and sleep being the only truth that doesn't disappoint. Or maybe you're mixing metaphors. Either way, it works. Somewhere in the distance you hear a faint chiming. Tiny bells. Probably from one of the concubines dancing in a separate part of the zenana, where music is still being played, even at this hour. The Mughals never did go to bed early. You rise again and fetch your small dream box, an ivory chest filled with objects meant to influence what you see in your sleep. A feather from a stork, a shard of quartz, dried petals from a wedding garland, a broken ring. You choose one at random tonight, the petal. You press it between your palms and whisper a wish. Not a grand wish, not for escape or adventure. A wish as simple as a wish. A repetition of a fish, just something small. Something like a peaceful dream with no court intrigue, no wedding proposals, and no surprise performances from badly trained dancers. You slide the petal under your pillow. Your sister is half asleep now, her arm draped over your cousin, both of them snoring in opposite rhythms like dueling flutes. You climb into bed carefully, pulling the gauze netting down again. The night around you tightens like a cocoon. Before you close your eyes, you look toward the window one last time. The stars haven't shifted, but maybe your heart has. The palace is quieter now, not truly silent, because nothing ever is, but hushed in the way that only ancient buildings can be, as if even the walls have learned how to sleep. You lie back against your cool, perfumed pillow, your sister's foot pressing lightly against your ankle, your cousin's breath like a breeze at your side. The mosquito net, gauzy and gold-trimmed, flutters faintly from a breeze no one feels. It's the hour for stories, not the kind with morals or endings or even logic. These are the floating, half-true tales that slip into the room uninvited, shared aloud or whispered in thought. And in your palace the stories come wrapped in stars. There's a soft knock at your door again. This time it's not family, it's your favorite courtier. Technically retired, and even more technically a woman of scandal in her youth, but now so beloved that no one questions why she's allowed to stroll the zenana at 1 o'clock a.m. She carries no tray, no scroll, no fan, only her voice and her smirk. I was summoned, she says, though of course no one summoned her. You sit up, happy to make room for her on the cushions. Your cousin stirs again, but stays asleep. Your sister grumbles something about your chamber turning into a bazaar. You hush her with a handful of sugared fennel. The courtier doesn't sit. She stands at the edge of the room and begins to speak. Not loudly, not theatrically, just evenly, with the practiced ease of someone who's soothed more royals to sleep than she can remember. The night's story is an old one. Not royal, not even Persian. A tale from the Deccan Hills, about a shepherd who spoke with fireflies and a sleeping mountain that only awakened to songs. As she speaks, your eyelids get heavier, but you fight it. Not because the story is exciting, it really isn't, but because her voice is like warm bread, soft, sustaining, slightly yeasty with time. The room around you is dotted with flickers, one lantern guttering, one nightlight still steady, a faint trail of sandalwood smoke curling from a burner that no one refilled. The courtier pauses mid-tale to adjust a cushion beneath your feet. "Can't have you dreaming with cold toes," she mutters. You grin sleepily. These are the moments no historian ever records. The comfort, the care, the odd intimacy of female spaces after midnight. Historians still argue whether the zenana was a prison or a paradise. But when a half-blind courtier tucks your feet in and tells you stories about talking fireflies, it's hard to imagine this being anything but a haven. She finishes the story on a whisper. The shepherd saves nothing, the mountain doesn't wake, but the fireflies stay, and that's the point. You don't ask for explanation. Some stories are soft puzzles never meant to be solved. As she leaves, she blows you a kiss without looking back. You hear her slippers shuffle down the hallway and then vanish like fog. Your sister mutters something in her sleep about tigers and wedding feasts. Your cousin has rolled fully under the sheet and is now indistinguishable from a tightly bundled sari. You, meanwhile, stare at the ceiling, not quite ready to surrender. It's then that a eunuch enters, silent as a wisp, with something different A chart, freshly inked, rolled in purple cloth. Tonight, it's your personal dream map. Not the sort used for interpreting what you did dream, but the kind meant to create dreams, if you believe in that sort of thing. Which, some nights, you do. He unfurls it on your bedside table, revealing constellations not as they are now, but as they were on the night of your birth. He whispers the symbols aloud. Elephant in flight, lotus crown, the mirror path. No one knows what they truly mean, but they sound nice. He says that if you sleep on your right side tonight, under a jasmine pillow, and keep your left hand slightly elevated, you'll dream of flying through a library made of rain. You ask him if he's tried it. He raises one eyebrow. Only once. I woke up with a nosebleed and an urge to write poetry. He leaves with a bow. You consider the instructions. Turn right, elevate left hand, jasmine pillow. It's worth a shot. The poetry part sounds like a bonus. You adjust yourself into position, contorting like a sleepy swan. Pillow here, arm there. The bed creaks once. Old teak, probably older than half your ancestors. The lights are out now. One small lamp remains, flickering gently like a firefly refusing to go to bed. You don't blow it out. You let it hum. A breeze rolls in. Faint. Carrying distant music. Maybe a sarod, maybe just the wind playing tricks. You listen for words, but find none. As you drift off, you wonder how many other princesses across history have fallen asleep with silver anklets still on, half listening to stories about nothing. You wonder if somewhere far away another girl is adjusting her pillow just so, chasing dreams someone charted for her with ink and stars. You smile. Then, finally, you sleep. You wake, but only a little. Not the kind of waking that brings alertness or intention. Just the sort of half-rise your mind does when it's between dreams. Your eyes don't open, your body doesn't move, but your thoughts hover somewhere above your own head, listening. A palace at night is a symphony, if you know how to hear it. A soft thud. A sandal dropped, not far away. A shushing whisper. Probably the night maid checking candles. The clink of a metal chain. Someone adjusting their jewelry in the dark. You wonder who it is. Maybe one of your older aunts. The one who insists she sleeps best when wearing her emerald necklace because it presses down the nonsense. You don't open your eyes. Instead, you do what you always do at this hour. You listen for the guards. One is pacing down the corridor near the entrance to the zenana. You know his rhythm well. 3 slow steps, then a tap of his spear to the marble. Pause. Repeat. He's always on time, even though no one is watching. Another one, you guess it's Sharif, coughs loudly, clears his throat, and then promptly knocks over what sounds like a tray. Somewhere, someone mutters a curse, and the soft slosh of water being mopped up follows. Palace guards are supposed to be silent, menacing shadows of discipline. Yours are more like overly loud cats wearing armor. You're oddly fond of them. Then there's the birds. You'd think they'd be asleep by now, but peacocks don't operate on logic. One croaks lowly like a trumpet that's given up. Another responds in a series of high-pitched shrieks, and you're certain they're arguing over nesting rights in the banana trees. Peacocks are beautiful in the day, insufferable by night. You once considered asking the emperor to ban them from the zenana gardens entirely. Then one gave you a feather, and you forgave its sins. You roll gently, adjusting the folds of your robe. The gauze canopy shifts with you, billowing slightly. The fan overhead no longer turns, but the night is cool just enough that you don't mind. You think about the guards again. One of them is probably writing poetry in his head. You caught him once, scribbling a verse about your cousin's eyebrows on a scrap of parchment. You threatened to have him reassigned to the camel yard. He offered to write one about your eyebrows. You let him stay. Historians still argue whether the Mughal zenana was as strictly guarded as the records suggest. Some claim eunuchs reported every breath taken by a princess, Others whisper that secret letters and tokens were exchanged under everyone's nose. You know better. The palace lives in a constant dance of surveillance and secrecy. It watches you closely and lets you get away with just enough. You rise slightly, pressing your hand to the cool lattice of your window screen. The moon is higher now, casting silver shadows across the courtyard. From here, you can just make out the silhouette of the fountain in the central garden, still running softly. The sound of trickling water is constant, like a lullaby composed by stone and gravity. You close your eyes again, but this time your thoughts shift. You think about your youngest brother, the one sent away for schooling in Kabul. He once crept into your room with a stolen sugar date and asked if you believed dreams could predict battles. You said no. He said yes. You still wonder who was right. You think about your first poetry tutor. She claimed sleep was a rehearsal for death, which made you cry. Your grandmother scolded her and gave you a mango to cheer you up. You've never looked at naps the same way since. And then you think about your own body. This tired, jeweled thing you carry through the palace every day. You notice the soft ache behind your knees, the dull press of your hip against the bed frame. You think about how many nights your ancestors have spent in rooms like this, under stars like these, whispering their fears into pillows and pretending they didn't. You open your eyes for real now, not wide, just enough to see your chamber in shadow. The oil lamp has gone out on its own. You forgot to extinguish it, but it did the work for you. A blessing. You shift again, your silver anklet catching the moonlight. It glints briefly, like a firefly landing on your foot. You wonder if anyone else is still awake. Then, a sound. Not footsteps, not peacocks. A voice, low, feminine, measured. Chanting? Maybe. A hymn or a lullaby or a spell, it's hard to say. You can't place the language. It doesn't matter. It threads through your thoughts like silk ribbon through loose hair. Someone, somewhere, is weaving words into the night. You sigh and allow your body to melt once more. You tuck one hand beneath your pillow and the other across your stomach, fingertips just grazing the edge of your robe's sash. The guards keep walking. The birds settle. The fountain flows. And somewhere someone chants for no one in particular. You don't fall asleep. You sink slowly, steadily, into a place below dreaming. You wake again, but now the world feels different. Not awake in the true sense, not rising from sleep like a curtain lifting. No, this is something in between, like floating just beneath the surface of warm water, hearing voices above but choosing not to surface. This is the hour Mughal poets called the whisper time, when thoughts wear silk and footsteps make no sound. The moon is lower now, slipping behind the dome of the nearby harem pavilion. Its glow catches in the window lattice, throwing delicate shadows across your bedding. The peacocks are finally quiet, perhaps asleep, perhaps plotting something. Either way, their absence feels like a gift. Your cousin is gone. You didn't notice her leave, but she's not there anymore. Maybe she wandered back to her own room. Maybe she went in search of honeyed almonds, or maybe she dissolved into the wall like a mischievous ghost. With her, the scent of sandalwood has faded a little. Your sister is still here. She's now turned sideways, hogging most of the bed and murmuring in her sleep about more pearls. You roll your eyes, though you're smiling. You sit up slowly, letting the silk of your robe slide back into place. The gauze canopy has tangled at one corner. You reach up and adjust it. Not because you need to, but because there's something deeply satisfying about fixing small, beautiful things when the rest of the world feels enormous. You slip your feet into soft slippers embroidered with tiny cranes and pad toward your writing alcove. Yes, your writing alcove, one of the many secrets your chamber holds. It's nothing dramatic, just a curved nook hidden behind a curtain, filled with scrolls, inkpots, and a small table carved with verses from Rumi. The lamps here burn low, always, and the seat is made from reclaimed sandalwood once used in a royal barge. You like to imagine it still smells faintly of river. You sit, stretch your fingers, and unroll a half-finished scroll. No grand ideas tonight. You're not composing imperial poetry or addressing the emperor, just a few thoughts. Maybe a line or two about the moon, maybe a haiku about your sister's hair getting in your mouth while she sleeps. The pen feels good in your hand, balanced, friendly. Historians still debate how educated Mughal princesses truly were. Some suggest their literary pursuits were exaggerated. Others point to surviving manuscripts covered in delicate, unmistakably feminine calligraphy. You don't need to win the argument. You're busy writing. Outside your window, a jackal yips in the distance. You pause to listen, not because it's frightening. It's far too familiar for that. But because it reminds you that you're not entirely alone in the world. Something wild still stirs just beyond the palace walls. You add that to your scroll, a line about how jackals know secrets the marble walls try to forget. Satisfied, you roll the scroll back up and tuck it into a compartment under your desk. No one reads these, not even you. It's enough to write them. You return to bed, but you don't lie down yet. Instead, you sit cross-legged on the cool sheets and begin the little ritual you've kept secret since girlhood. Nighttime embroidery. A small hoop, a length of pale thread, and a square of muslin no bigger than your palm. Each night a few stitches, each square different. A bird, a star, a hand, a pear. One time, a fish with a monocle. That was a strange dream. Tonight, you stitch the outline of a closed eye. Not open, not weeping, just closed, resting, dreaming, safe. As your fingers move, your thoughts wander. To the gardener who always leaves you the first pomegranate of the season, even though no one has officially allowed it. To the time you and your sister tried to dye your robes with indigo flowers and ended up staining half the bathhouse. To the old cook with missing teeth who swears he saw a flaming chariot cross the sky last week. Your world is full of these people, unwritten, uncelebrated, and utterly unforgettable. You finish the last stitch, knot the thread, and kiss the fabric like a tiny seal. Then you slide it under your pillow where all the others hide. You lie back, this time truly ready. The ceiling is soft with shadow. Your pulse is slow. The anklet on your left foot feels warmer than your right, and for some reason that makes you feel balanced. You whisper one line to the ceiling. Not a prayer, not a poem, just, "Let the dream be kind." Then you close your eyes, one last time, and let the darkness take you again. You wake to warmth, not sunlight. No, it's far too early for that. This warmth is gentler, more internal, like the last glow from a fading dream. For a moment, you don't know where you are. The ceiling seems unfamiliar, the gauze canopy a floating cloud you might have conjured yourself. Then the scent hits you. Rose petals and vetiver, and the room comes back into focus. You're still in your chamber, still wrapped in fine muslin, still a Mughal princess, despite what your dreams may have told you. You stretch, arms above your head, toes pointed. The stretch becomes a yawn, wide and shameless. Across the room, the lanterns have burned themselves out, leaving only a ribbon of moonlight spilling in through the carved screen. It paints a lattice pattern across the marble floor like a silent poem in light and shadow. Your sister is gone now. You don't recall her leaving. She probably woke before you and padded back to her own room, where her maids will pretend they didn't see the sugared lotus seeds she stole from your tray. Let her have them. It's the only thing she steals quietly. You sit up slowly, letting your head catch up to your body. There's a dull ache behind your temples, the sort of ache that comes from too much dreaming. You can't remember what you dreamed, only that it felt long, heavy with silk and sky. You swing your legs over the side of the bed, the anklet chiming softly. The floor is cold. You like it that way. cold enough to remind you that this is the world of stone and rules, not the cotton candy universe of dreams where jackals talk and court musicians fly. Shabnam enters before you can call her. She always does. It's eerie how she knows. She carries a tray with a small cloth, a clay pot of warm water, and a bowl of crushed mint leaves. "You talked in your sleep again," she says, setting the tray down. "Something about a flaming chariot and a fish with jewelry." You blink. "I did not say that." "You did, twice." You both smile. It's an old ritual, this dream reporting. Sometimes she makes things up to tease you. Once she insisted you whispered marriage proposals to a mango. You didn't, obviously, but now she leaves a mango on your breakfast tray just in case. Shabnam dabs your face gently with a warm cloth. You close your eyes and let her. The mint clears your head. She parts your hair and smooths the edges, braiding it loosely with fingers that barely tug. You've never loved anyone's hands more. The first order of business is not dressing, not bathing, not even praying. It's oil. A tiny bronze pot is uncorked, releasing the scent of almond, clove, and something grassy you can never quite name. She rubs a little onto your temples, a little more on the soles of your feet. It's grounding, earthy. It makes you feel like someone who hasn't spoken in hours and doesn't need to. Historians still argue whether Mughal princesses had regular access to medicine and wellness rituals, or whether their routines were more cosmetic than healing. But you know that in this chamber, oil is everything. Before the jewels, before the poetry, before the performances, there is always oil. She offers you a cup of warm honey water next. It tastes faintly of tulsi and iron, like something borrowed from a forest temple. You sip slowly, and your body starts to settle into itself. "Should I bring the astrologer?" Shabnam asks. You groan. No. Not unless he's learned how to read dreams that involve peacocks and talking pears. I'm sure he'll say it means you'll marry someone tall. They always say that. The astrologer hasn't gotten a dream prediction right since you were 11. Still, he insists on charting your stars every week. Last time, he said you would have a vision of water. You promptly fell asleep during your poetry recitation and drooled onto your scroll. Technically accurate, but not exactly mystical. Shabnam leaves briefly, and you're alone again. You rise and move toward the balcony, pulling the curtain aside. Outside, the sky's still dark, but light is beginning to leak through the horizon like spilled milk. The birds haven't started yet. The guards haven't changed shifts. This is the breath before morning. You stand there a while, letting the breeze comb through your robe. You see a servant down in the courtyard lighting incense under the neem tree. Another unfurls a prayer rug on the marble terrace. Life is beginning, inch by inch, like a painting being unrolled. You take one long breath, then step back inside. The bedding is already being cleared, the scrolls are packed away, the milk tray is gone, but one thing remains. A single rose petal, flattened under your pillow. You pick it up, turn it over in your fingers and smile. You don't remember the dream, but something inside you does. It's fully morning now, or at least the kind of morning Mughal palaces understand. Light slanting sideways through carved jali screens, birds calling from hidden perches, and the faint murmur of servants below preparing for the rituals of the day. You, however, are not in a rush. Mornings in the zenana begin slowly, deliberately, like honey easing from a spoon. No one expects you to leap from bed and solve the empire's problems. Not unless you're your great-aunt, who once composed a legal brief in her bathrobe because a provincial governor dared to insult her pigeons. But you're not her. Yet. You're still barefoot, still scented with last night's oil, and still unsure if you're fully awake, which is why you're being led, gently, by a pair of maids through the corridor toward the bathhouse. It's not just any bathhouse. It's the hammam, the crown jewel of the women's quarters. A palace within a palace, a place of steam, secrets, and slightly too honest conversations. You enter without fanfare, letting the warm, misty air wrap itself around your skin. Your robe is slipped off without a word, and you're left in nothing but your bangles and the dreams still clinging to your scalp. The steam makes you feel like you're dissolving in a good way. The kind of melting that washes yesterday off you, court gossip, embroidery mishaps, awkward glances from that noble boy who always drops his spoon when you walk in. All of it lifts, light as air. You lower yourself into the central pool, sighing as the warm water hugs your bones. Around you, other women murmur softly, trading news, stories, nonsense. You catch a whisper about someone's stolen slippers, another about the Empress's pet mongoose. Somewhere to your left, someone is humming what sounds suspiciously like a romantic ballad, but with the name switched to include vegetables. You don't ask. The walls are tiled in pale blue and gold, the ceiling painted with delicate vines. The whole place smells of rose, eucalyptus, and something slightly medicinal, probably the herbal paste someone left uncapped again. You run your fingers along the surface of the water, tracing lazy circles as your mind drifts. A servant approaches with a brass bowl and begins gently pouring water over your hair. It trickles down your back, warm and rhythmic. The bowl is then replaced with a paste of sandalwood and tulsi, massaged into your scalp with firm, practiced hands. You sigh again. It's not indulgence, it's tradition. That's what you tell yourself anyway. Historians still argue whether royal women spent their days in idle pampering or strategic maneuvering, but here, now, as your skin is scrubbed with a silk cloth and your arms are stretched beneath the touch of someone who's known you since childhood, you decide it's both. This is luxury, yes, but also power. You emerge from this bath not just clean, but calibrated, ready. A faint bell rings in the outer hall. That means breakfast is near. Your maid wraps you in a soft cotton towel, then dusts your skin with fine rose powder. Your hair is plaited, oiled again, and tucked into a braid so glossy it could blind a court poet. You step into soft slippers, ones with tiny embroidered fish. Your favorite. You're clothed again, this time in a fresh muslin tunic dyed the pale green of lime leaves, fastened with delicate mother-of-pearl buttons. Before leaving the hammam, you take a moment to sit on the stone bench near the exit. There, in a corner half hidden by trailing vines, is a tiny shelf where women leave folded scraps of poetry, secret thoughts, or questions they dare not speak aloud. You don't always leave one, but today you do. You pull a piece of silk paper from your sleeve, scribble a few lines, and tuck it among the others. Greater than, last night I dreamed of an empire made of stars. Greater than, no wars, no robes, just constellations. Greater than, am I still a princess there? No signature. No need. As you step back into the corridor, the sunlight catches your sleeve and casts a pale green shadow on the wall, like mint in tea, like promise before flavor. The palace is louder now. The daytime version of it, at least. Drums thud in the courtyard, announcing the morning prayers. The maids rush with baskets of laundry. Pages dart through hallways with scrolls, messages, minor chaos. The cook's apprentice is already arguing about lentils. Somewhere nearby, the parrots are being fed by a servant who insists on reciting couplets to them, even though they only ever squawk in return. You glide through all of this like a slow-moving comet. Untouchable, observing, half still in the dream. Back in your room, the breakfast tray awaits. Fresh flatbread folded like letters, honeyed melon slices, saffron yogurt, and yes, one small mango. You smile. You sit cross-legged before your breakfast tray, steam curling up from a clay cup of spiced milk. The tray rests on a low table, lacquered in red and gold, inlaid with mother-of-pearl motifs that shimmer even in the filtered light. You tear a corner of the bread, soft and warm, and swipe it through the yogurt. The saffron scent hits you first. Floral, earthy, expensive enough that someone probably had to beg a merchant to get it here on time. You eat slowly. Not because anyone told you to, but because breakfast is sacred. The one meal of the day no one dares interrupt. Not even the Empress. Not even your overly ambitious cousin who once burst in mid-meal to ask if she could borrow your poet. He never recovered. The mango sits in its own dish. You ignore it for now. That's dessert, or reward, or negotiation leverage, depending on how the morning unfolds. As you chew, your eyes drift to the far wall where the sunlight slants through the lattice and projects thousands of tiny diamonds across the floor. It looks like someone scattered crushed ice or fragments of stars. You stretch out a toe and break the pattern just to watch it ripple. You'll never tire of that. There's a knock at your door. 3 quick taps and a pause. Not Shabnam. Not your sister. That's the eunuch messenger's rhythm. You sigh, finishing your bread with one final swipe of yogurt, then dab your fingers clean with a lemon-scented cloth. He enters, head bowed, holding a scroll tied with violet ribbon. Only one person uses violet, the Empress, your mother. You take the scroll without comment, waiting until the eunuch has backed away before you break the seal. Inside, a request to join her for the mid-morning hour. Not an order, not a summons. A request. Which is worse. Now you have to go. You grumble softly and take a sip of milk. The Empress only ever calls you at this time when she's thinking, which could mean anything from planning a festival to arranging a marriage to redesigning the palace fountains in the shape of jasmine blossoms, all of which naturally require your input. You finish your milk and finally eat the mango. It's tender, ripe, and cold. Someone must have cooled it on marble overnight. It tastes like apology, or perhaps armor. You rise and let Shabnam help you into your formal morning robe, this one silk stitched with golden peacock feathers. You add only one piece of jewelry, the emerald drop earrings your mother gave you when you turned 14. The message is subtle. I'm obedient, but not defenseless. The walk to your mother's chamber is familiar but never casual. You pass through the painted corridor, its ceilings covered in scenes from royal hunts, and through the arched gate carved with lotus and flame. Guards nod as you pass. Maids whisper. Someone's parrot shrieks your name, badly mispronounced. You enter. Your mother is already seated on a low divan, half covered in a velvet throw, sipping her own milk drink, while scribes and attendants linger in the background like furniture that occasionally breathes. She gestures for them to leave. They vanish like smoke. She pats the cushion beside her, and you sit. No words yet. She hands you a piece of paper, unusually plain. A poem, not hers. Yours. One of the ones you thought you hid well. So, she says, are you planning to become a poet? You blink. Depends on the salary. She snorts, almost laughing. Almost. She hands the scroll back and leans into the sunlight. For a moment, the two of you are just women. Not mother and daughter, not empress and heir. She asks how you slept. You say, peacefully. She nods, unconvinced. She always wants details, which dream, what symbols, who appeared, how many mangoes. You give her nothing this time. She's already seen enough. Historians still argue whether royal mothers shape the lives of their daughters with affection or iron. The truth, as always, is slipperier. Your mother rules like a gardener, with pruning shears hidden in a basket of rose petals. She finally speaks again. Do you ever wonder what it would be like to sleep in an ordinary house? With no guards? You tilt your head. No embroidery, no scrolls, no mangoes. She smiles. Just stars, a mat, a breeze. You pretend to consider. How terrible. She laughs softly, the kind of laugh that turns into a sigh. Then she looks at you and her voice changes. Tonight there's a banquet. You'll attend. Wear the blue. The moment is gone. The Empress returns, you rise, bow slightly, and take your leave. As you walk back through the corridor, past the murals and the parrots and the endless doors, you feel that odd mix of peace and pressure that always follows time with her. Back in your room, the sun has shifted. The diamonds on the floor are gone. But your embroidery hoop waits, the needle still threaded from last night, and suddenly, you know what to stitch next. A tiny mango, just slightly bruised. By midday, the palace is humming with purpose. The heat has begun to rise, lazy, golden, syrupy, settling on domes and courtyards like a heavy shawl. Servants flit from room to room, eyes downcast but ears wide open. The palace kitchen, a beast of its own, breathes out wafts of cardamom, cumin, ghee, and just a hint of panic. A banquet tonight means nothing can go wrong, especially not under the Empress's watch. You, however, are not panicked. You're reclined on a low divan, a cold rosewater cloth across your forehead, and a pair of ankle-cooling bowls placed precisely beneath your feet. Yes, bowls filled with cool marble pebbles. This is your secret weapon against the Delhi summer. You learned it from one of the older concubines who claimed to have outlived 3 emperors by keeping her ankles chilled and her opinions warmer. You lift the cloth and glance toward the open jali screen. Beyond it, the garden is in bloom, silent but bold. Bougainvillea climbing trellises like gossip scaling a wall. Somewhere near the fountain you can just make out the soft clink of bracelets and the hiss of water in copper jugs. The maids are tending the marble, again, because nothing says royal opulence like scrubbing stone 3 times a day. You're not expected to do much this afternoon. That's the unspoken rule. Midday is reserved for cooling down, sipping sherbet, writing moody poetry, or dramatically fainting if someone mentions marriage. It's the pause before the performance, the lull before the silk and jewelry come out. Still, you can't resist. You rise, stepping off the divan, and open the small drawer in your writing table, the one no one else knows about. Inside, letters, dozens of them, some unopened, some read until their edges frayed. Some are from your sister, written while she was away visiting another court and clearly homesick. Others are from your aunt, who believed every letter should include a recipe and a veiled insult. And then there are the secret ones, the ones that arrived without names. One, in particular, catches your eye. It's folded with care and sealed with wax shaped like a crane. Inside, a single line. Greater than, if dreams are the only place we meet, then I'll sleep forever. You've read it before, of course, dozens of times. And still, it makes something flutter low in your stomach. Historians still argue whether Mughal princesses had any say in their own romances. The official answer is no. But you know better. Love here takes the shape of shadows, metaphors, and well-trained discretion. A breeze rolls through, and you tuck the letter away. No use thinking about dreams now. There's a banquet ahead, and your presence will be scrutinized, like the cut of melon on the table. You call for Shabnam, who arrives instantly, as if she were leaning against the door this whole time. She doesn't even wait for instructions. She disappears into your wardrobe, muttering to herself about fabric weights, sleeve length, and that ridiculous peach color the Empress favors. You laugh quietly and sit by your vanity. Your reflection stares back, a little too thoughtful, a little too sleepy, but definitely still royal. The preparation begins. First, the skin is dusted, not with powder, but with crushed pearl. Just a little, enough to shimmer beneath the oil lamps, but not blind your guests. Then, a dab of rose balm behind the ears, between your toes, yes, really, and at the nape of your neck. That last spot is where the scent lingers longest, according to one of the palace's many unofficial experts in flirtation. The tunic is next, navy silk, heavy with embroidery. Tiny golden cranes in flight, wings tipped in thread the color of marigolds. You run your hand across the fabric and feel the weight of each stitch. Every crane was done by someone who probably whispered a prayer for your fortune. or, more likely, gossiped about your mother's latest lecture. Either way, the thread remembers. The final touch, jewelry. You decline the heavy headpiece. It's too early in the season. Instead, you choose a single ruby ring and a set of bangles that chime softly when you move. A small rebellion, enough to suggest elegance without desperation. "Anything else?" Shabnam asks, holding up a brush with a tassel of black kohl. You hesitate. "Not tonight. Let them wonder if I'm tired or just dangerous." She nods solemnly, as if you've just quoted an ancient proverb. Dressed and prepared, you're left alone for a moment. Just a moment. Enough time to check your breath, check your balance, and check the tilt of your thoughts. The banquet will bring diplomats, ministers, poets, and one or two rivals pretending to admire your taste in silk. You'll need to smile, speak, sparkle, and all without spilling sherbet down your front. Before leaving, you reach into the small lacquered box on your vanity and pull out a string of jasmine flowers. Not a garland, just a short string. You tuck it into your braid just behind the ear, a nod to the girl beneath the princess, the one who still dreams of letters and mangoes and midnight poetry. The drum sounds. Once, twice. The banquet has begun. You rise, and like a dream stepping into daylight, you glide out of your chamber. Cool ankles, warm heart, and all, you glide down the corridor like you were born in a painting. The palace at banquet hour is a creature transformed. Lanterns burn low but steady, casting pools of golden light that ripple across inlaid marble and polished brass. Musicians tune their instruments in a tucked-away alcove, their sitars murmuring like distant thunderclouds preparing to sing. The scent of rosewater has deepened, blended now with roasted cardamom, grilled meats, saffron rice, and just the faintest wisp of sandalwood smoke rising from the garden braziers. You pass under an archway carved with verses of love in Persian. You know them by heart, mostly because your sister once defaced them with tiny chalk doodles, hearts, arrows, a suspiciously potato-shaped swan. Before being caught and scolded, you'd defended her with great passion. Art is interpretation, you'd said. The Empress had not agreed. The banquet hall looms ahead. No doors, just a velvet curtain drawn wide. A hush follows your entrance, subtle, respectful. Not because they fear you, but because you've arrived exactly on time. Power, you've learned, often announces itself in silence. The floor is scattered with embroidered cushions and low tables, each set with brass plates, gleaming goblets, and flower arrangements that look casual but were discussed for 5 full days. At the center of the room sits your mother, serene and sparkling, surrounded by her ladies, poets, and the occasional unfortunate minister who's been dragged into light conversation. You're guided to your place, a silk cushion set slightly off-center from the main circle, close enough to the Empress to hear her, but not so close that it suggests over-familiarity. Seating hierarchies are half the politics here. You nod greetings. A poet bows so deeply his turban tilts. A minister smiles a little too hard. Someone sneezes into a silk scarf and pretends it didn't happen. Business as usual. You glance down at your goblet. It's filled with rose sherbet so cold it leaves a frost ring on the brass. You sip. Behind you, someone begins plucking a sitar string, the notes melting into the air like honey. And then comes the surprise. The story begins. Not a recitation, not a reading. A story, told aloud by an old woman with a voice like cinnamon bark and a laugh that curls at the edges. She's not palace staff. She's a guest. A special one. A wandering storyteller. This doesn't happen often. Most nights are for formal entertainment, dancers, singers, poets with heavy metaphors. But tonight, it seems, someone has pulled from the deeper well of tradition. She tells a tale of a Mughal princess. Not you, not by name, but someone who sounds suspiciously familiar. This princess cannot sleep, so she bribes the stars to sing her lullabies. She steals shadows from the garden and sews them into her pillow. She makes a deal with a parrot to whisper secrets in her ear, but only if she gives him a mango every full moon. You laugh softly. Others do too. And yet, beneath the humor, there's something else, an unknowing, the kind only women carry. The storyteller pauses mid-tale to sip from her cup, glances at you, and winks. You blink. Did she just wink? Or are you imagining it? Historians still argue whether court storytellers were simple entertainers or coded messengers slipping truth between their tales. You know what you believe. The banquet continues, dishes passed from hand to hand, laughter swelling and dipping like waves. There's roasted lamb, rice cooked with cherries, pickled lemons, little fried pastries shaped like flowers. You try not to eat too much of the saffron rice because it stains your teeth. Your sister once spent a full evening smiling with saffron molars, thinking she looked ethereal. A young courtier tries to make conversation. He stumbles over a compliment about your earrings, then immediately spills honey across the table. You smile kindly. Poor boy. First banquets are rough. You excuse yourself briefly and step out into the garden terrace, where the air is cooler and the lamps flicker against stone walls. The moon is climbing high now, painting the courtyard in silver. You breathe in deeply. There's jasmine in the air again, carried on the night breeze. Somewhere in the shadows, you hear footsteps. A maid, a guard, a suitor with no sense of time. But no one appears. You turn and look up at your own chamber window. From here it looks like part of the palace itself, still elegant, unknowable. But inside it holds all the secrets of sleep. You return to the banquet. The old woman is finishing her tale. The parrot refuses his mango, saying the princess no longer needs dreams. She's already living in one. Everyone claps. Softly, respectfully, and then the music begins again. You sip from your goblet. The sherbet is warm now, but still sweet. The empress catches your eye across the room. She raises a single eyebrow, ever so slightly. You nod back, knowing exactly what she means. It's time to leave. Banquets end in waves, not with farewells. You rise, thank the storyteller, nod to the ministers, and slip out into the night, like a sigh. Back in your room, the curtains are drawn. The jasmine garland you wore earlier now rests on your writing desk. The mango from breakfast has been replaced with a fresh one, still cold. You peel it slowly and take one bite. It tastes like stars. Back in your chamber, the air is quieter now, thicker, softer, the kind of silence that clings to silk and listens in on your thoughts. The banquet is behind you, the music, the stories, the careful smiles, they all belong to another world now, a more public one. This room, with its moon-dappled curtains and familiar shadows, is your sanctuary. A place where you are not just a princess, but a girl who writes poems on scraps of bark and thinks too much about how clouds sound when no one is listening. Shabnam is already here, of course. She's folding your robe carefully, muttering to herself about embroidery threads and how the kitchen staff still can't get the rose infusion ratio right. You let her talk. It's a soothing background rhythm, like a lullaby sung by someone who insists she isn't singing at all. You step behind the dressing screen. The air back here always smells faintly of nerli and cloves. Your own private scent signature, one you've cultivated so subtly even your mother hasn't noticed. Yet, Shabnam hands you a clean night robe. Fine cotton, light as a sigh, dyed the color of dawn. She brushes out your braid, murmuring about knots and the apparent scandal of a wayward hairpin. She applies a light balm behind your ears, then touches your forehead with a cooling rose essence. Her final gesture, tying a silver thread around your wrist. A superstitious tradition, she claims, keeps dreams from spilling out. You don't argue. Not tonight. You settle into bed, the cushions fluffed just so, the quilt turned down to the perfect angle. The silk canopy above you stirs slightly in the breeze, just enough to remind you that there's a world beyond these walls. A world of watchful stars, prowling jackals, and perhaps, just perhaps, letters waiting to be written. You turn on your side, drawing the quilt up to your shoulder. Shabnam dims the lanterns until only the soft blue lamp remains, a nightlight made from a carved chunk of lapis lazuli gifted by a visiting merchant who claimed it could trap bad dreams in its veins. You weren't sure whether to believe him, but you liked the idea, so it stayed. The room grows still, and then, softly, your sister creeps back in. Of course she does. Her bangles jingle despite her best effort, and she trips slightly on the threshold, catching herself with a whispered curse you pretend not to hear. She pads across the room, curls up on the rug at the foot of your bed like a cat, and pulls one of the embroidered pillows into her arms. You don't ask why she's returned. She never really leaves for long. "Did you know," she whispers, "the Empress thinks I should marry a boy who once mistook a kumquat for an orange?" You stifle a laugh. Sounds like a man of discernment. "He also said I had tiger-like posture." What does that mean? "No idea. Maybe he thinks you bite." "Good," you both giggle. Too loudly. And Shabnam groans from the corner where she's now pretending to sleep upright on a cushion. Still, the room relaxes. The silence returns, but now it's softer, shared. You stare up at the canopy, eyes half-lidded. The weight of the day melts from your limbs. Somewhere in the corner, a beetle hums near the window screen. From the outer corridor, a faint clink, the guard switching shift, and in the garden, one stubborn nightingale who insists on singing just one note, over and over, like a child learning a song it can't quite remember. You think about the storyteller's parrot, about the dream mango, about the line, "If dreams are the only place we meet." Historians still argue whether Mughal women had agency over their emotional lives, whether their letters mattered, whether their dreams changed anything. But they don't know what you know. Dreams are archives, not of fact, but of feeling. And sometimes, that's what lasts longest. Your eyelids grow heavy, your breath slows. But just before sleep takes you, Shabnam's voice cuts softly through the dark. "Do you want me to read the moon chart again?" You smile without opening your eyes. "Only if the stars say I'm destined to avoid the kumquat suitor." There's a quiet laugh, a rustle of blankets, and then stillness. The dreams begin soon after. This time, there are no flaming chariots, no talking pears. Just soft hills, a breeze through linen curtains, and a field of cranes flying overhead, stitched from the same thread as your gown. You wake slowly, the way paper curls under warm air. The room is still dark, but not with night, rather that pale, fragile hush just before sunrise. The moon has ducked behind the Jali screen, and the stars are beginning to blink themselves out one by one. Even the palace seems to hold its breath. Your sister is gone again, slipped away before first light. You can tell by the way the rug has been gently folded back, and the pillow she borrowed has been tucked neatly into place. She always does that, leaves no trace. Like a dream you only half remember but miss anyway. You sit up, blinking against the blue-grey light, and the chill air meets your skin like a soft warning. Shabnam is already stirring, lighting a small clay lamp in the corner and whispering to herself. Prayers, maybe, or just a running commentary on everything she needs to do before breakfast. You don't speak yet. You simply listen. There's something different about this morning, a stillness that isn't sleepy but expectant. It clings to the air like steam before a monsoon. You swing your legs down, the cold floor sending little jolts up your spine. Shabnam wraps a shawl around your shoulders without a word, and for a moment you just sit there, wrapped in wool and silence. Then you say it. Let's go to the terrace. She doesn't ask why. She just nods, pulls another shawl over her own shoulders, and the two of you walk through the corridor barefoot, your anklet chiming with every soft step. The palace is half asleep, its inhabitants tucked behind embroidered curtains and velvet blinds. Only a few oil lamps remain lit, like lazy stars, echoing the ones that just disappeared. You step onto the terrace, and the air hits you. Cool, fresh, alive with the kind of promise only a Mughal dawn can offer. Below, the garden stretches out in perfect geometry. Box hedges, lotus ponds, mango trees still asleep. A lone gardener is sweeping the marble paths with a broom made from peacock feathers. You watch him for a while, hypnotized by the rhythm of it. The sky begins to bloom. Not all at once. First a thread of coral, then a sweep of lavender, then gold, bleeding in from the edges like the sun had forgotten to stay hidden. You and Shabnam sit on the cold stone ledge, feet dangling just slightly, eyes fixed on the horizon. She hands you a warm drink, spiced milk with a hint of pistachio, and for a long moment, neither of you speak. And then, softly, she asks, "Do you ever think about leaving?" You turn to her. "Leaving the palace?" "No, just leaving. The routine, the layers, the decisions made 5 conversations before they ever reach you." You take a sip of your drink, watching a flock of doves burst from the neem tree below. "Sometimes," you say, "but then I think the world outside doesn't have you." She rolls her eyes, but you catch the tiny smile. Historians still argue whether Mughal princesses understood friendship as power or power as friendship. But that's a false choice. The truth is this. The most dangerous thing in a palace is a woman who knows who she trusts. The sun crests over the far dome now, illuminating the terrace in gold. Your shawl slips from your shoulder, and you don't bother to fix it. Instead, you rise. Not to leave, not to start the day, but to simply stand in that light for one moment longer, to feel the heat on your cheeks, to remember that beneath all the silk and rosewater and rituals, you are still a body, still a heartbeat, still a girl who stood in the early morning air and breathed in the day before it could begin. Behind you, Shabnam whispers, "The moon chart said today will bring something new." You nod. It already has. The sun climbs, slow but steady, and with it the rhythm of palace life returns like an orchestra warming up. Bells from the servant quarters, the slap of laundry on stone, the shuffle of maids gathering flower garlands for the day's rituals. You're back in your chamber now, bare feet pressed to the cool floor, idly sorting through a box of old keepsakes. It's something you do when the palace feels too large. Shrink your world to a wooden box the size of a tea tray. Inside, a chipped ivory comb, a miniature painting of a peacock holding a mango in its beak, a gift from your sister. A fragment of a song you once wrote, on the back of a festival invitation. A dried rose petal that might be from a garland or might just be from dinner. There's no way to know, and at the very bottom, a folded piece of mulberry paper with a line you scrawled months ago. "If my dreams don't belong to me, who do they report to?" You almost forgot you'd written that. You turn the paper over, half expecting an answer to have appeared by magic. It hasn't, but still it makes you smile. Shabnam re-enters with your morning scrolls. Nothing urgent, just poetry fragments, a schedule of guests for the week, and a suspiciously polite invitation to join a prayer circle led by a noblewoman who once accused you of over-oiling the palace fountain. You toss that one aside. You're not required to attend any public affairs today. A rare pocket of unstructured time, so instead you choose to indulge in a slower ritual. You light a stick of incense, frankincense, and cedar, and settle onto your cushion near the window, bringing your embroidery hoop to your lap. The current piece, a garden scene, with a tree bearing both mangoes and stars. You don't remember why you started it, But now it feels like a story halfway told. You make tiny stitches, gold for the stars, green for the mangoes. One thread at a time the image grows, impossible and oddly comforting. Outside, the garden is alive. Birds hop across the tiled fountains. A monkey perches briefly on the terrace wall before vanishing. A small group of noble women strolls by, veiled in sheer silks, discussing whether dreams can be inherited like titles. You pause your stitching to listen. One says, "My aunt dreamt of white lotuses for 3 nights, and then her second son was born with a mark shaped like a petal." Another counters, "Or maybe she just had indigestion." You snort softly. Historians still argue whether Mughal princesses were allowed to be idle. Whether this quiet moment, needle in hand, mind adrift, no formal duties pressing, counts as luxury or resistance. You decide it's both. It always is. Later, you'll probably go to the garden, maybe read, maybe press your feet into the warm grass and pretend, for a second, that your life is not laced with protocol and responsibility. You might even sneak another mango from the kitchen, just to see if the parrot has anything new to say, but not yet. For now, you stitch. You sip from a small cup of almond milk laced with poppy seeds. You let your mind drift to last night's story. The parrot, the princess, the stolen dreams. You wonder what tonight's dreams will bring. And then, slowly, gently, the world softens. And now, let yourself exhale. Sink deeper into the silence of the room around you. Imagine the quilt draped over your shoulder, the embroidered pillow cradling your cheek, the scent of rose and sandalwood still lingering in the air. The palace outside quiets, but does not sleep. Somewhere, a lantern flickers. A scroll is rolled. A pair of anklets is slipped off and left by the door. But here, in your chamber, the world is still. You are no longer the princess of letters or silks or ceremonial duties. You are only breath, only softness, only the steady rhythm of sleep as it draws near like a tide. Picture the garden bathed in moonlight, the fountain still murmuring stories of empresses and star charts, of mangoes and dreams. Imagine the parrot tucked under its wing, the poems folded under pillows, the silver thread round your wrist, holding your dreams in place. Let your thoughts slow, each one drifting further from the shore. There is no banquet, no decision, no chart to read, only the whisper of silk on stone, the hush of footsteps padded through corridors and the sky above, dark, calm, and full of unspoken wishes. Tonight, you do not need to be remembered, only rested, only here, only dreaming.